You see any notifications, Mark? Or recording? Okay. Yes. Okay. Excellent.
Right. Okay. Can you see my slides to start with? That'll be a good starting point. Can anybody see my slides? No?
Not yet. Maybe it needs some time to loading.
Can you see the slides now?
No. Or you want to send the slide to us and then we can present?
Let me just try one more thing. Window, tab.
Oh, yeah.
Can you see the slides now?
Yeah, now it's up now. Cool.
Right, okay, that's fine. As long as you can see the slides. At the moment, I can't see you. So if you do have a question, you might just have to kind of shout out. I'll be able to hear you, but I can't physically see you at the moment, if that's okay.
Yeah, so I will be take the questions and talk to you. It's fine?
Okay, yeah, that's fine. So feel free to interrupt me at any point because I can't see you. So please do interrupt if I'm kind of running over or if you need to kind of chip in with anything. But generally, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak to you this afternoon. My name is Mark Williams. I work here at Medical Projects, and essentially what we do is we help students along their journey into medical school and into various healthcare careers. We've been doing this for about 7 or 8 years now. And we kind of help probably about 15,000 students a year in one form or another, whether that's through our kind of free advice and guidance articles that we have, through the reports that we send through to your teachers, through webinars and through talks like this as well. So we have quite a lot of experience in terms of kind of helping students along that journey. And I'm guessing that most of you will be relatively new to the medical school application process. And medicine's, it's slightly strange. It's a little bit different to normal applications. A lot of people that are applying to university will just have to kind of, you know, get the set results that they need, apply through UCAS, and that they'll be judged on those kind of two relatively simple things. Whereas the process for medicine is a lot more complex than that, and you have to get a lot more things done. You have to get a lot of things correct to successfully gain a place at medical school. So this talk today is an overview of that entire process. There's lots of individual things in along that journey, and we have information about every one of those in detail. But this is just an overview of all of those kind of steps that you'll have to go through if you're thinking about applying to medical school. So what we'll cover in this, in the kind of the next 15, 20 minutes is I'll just cover a few of the myths around applying to medical school and what that's like. We'll have a quick look at how many medical schools there are in the UK that you can apply to. We'll have a look at a timeline, whether you're in kind of year 12 or year 13 and the processes that you'll have to do in each year. And then we'll have a look at some of the statistics around applying to medical school and give you a really good overview of what you need to take on if you're thinking about applying to medical school. And we'll look at the number of spaces, the subjects you need, grades, entrance exams, interviews, all of these hoops that they make you jump through. We'll have a look at all of those individually. Then we'll talk very briefly about kind of work experience and the extracurricular activities that you'll need to do on top of all of your kind of studies and exams. So there's quite a lot. It's quite a tricky process, and being prepared is step number one. And the fact that you're here means that you are taking steps to proactively seek out information to help you with your medical school application. So you're already in a good place, which is really good. So some of the things that we hear when students are applying to medical school is, oh, you should only apply to the best medical schools in the UK. You know, the most popular medical schools that we hear all the time tend to be Oxford, Cambridge, King's. And actually, every medical school is equal. And you shouldn't be picking your medical schools based on their reputation alone. You need to find a medical school that fits you and fits all your entry requirements to make sure it gives you the best chance of getting in. So we have no medical school snobbery here. It's all about finding and maximizing your chances of getting into medical school. Another thing we hear all the time is that medical students have no life. and they're just stuck in the library all the time. It's completely false. Medical students, the university students, like everybody else, they have great social lives. Yes, the work's a little bit harder, but they still have a life. So don't let that kind of scare you off if you're thinking about applying to study medicine. Another thing we hear as well, which is a strange one, that medical schools somehow have to fail like the bottom 10% and you kind of get cut and it's really competitive. Again, this isn't true. As long as you're kind of achieving all the grades and keeping up with the work, you'll be absolutely fine, and we don't cut the bottom 10% or anything like that. So hopefully that might alleviate some fears of the competition within medical school, because it's not as competitive once you're in as you might think. Another thing that we see all the time as well is that you'll be kind of thrown straight into surgery, and you'll be taking blood and you'll be seeing patients all in like your first year of university. In reality, that's not the case. They have to take you from being an A-level student and turn you into a medical student, into a doctor, and that takes a bit of time. So for most universities, you're not really going to be dealing with kind of patients and hands-on things until probably a couple of years into your degree. Cool. So hopefully that cleared up just a few of the main things that we hear all the time, and then we can get into talking about medical schools themselves. So there are a total of 45 medical schools in the UK, and you can actually apply to about 39 of them. So some of them will only take graduate entry only, some of them will only take international students, and there's various criteria. So realistically, you've only got 39 medical schools to choose from. And we'll have a look at the medical schools in a bit more detail in how they select students in a little bit as well. So if anybody's in year 12 at the moment, this is kind of the process that you'll be needing to go through this year. Applying to medical school is literally an 18-month process, and it starts as soon as you start year 12. So this year for year 12s is all about kind of laying the foundations for a really strong application. And that means gaining lots of work experience, trying to get some volunteering set up, just gaining lots of insight into what medical school is like, what being a doctor is like. And then towards the end of year 12, you might have to sit one of these kind of two entrance exams. There's a UCAT and a BMAT. And the UCAT normally happens in the summer break between year 12 and year 13. So that's something that you need to kind of be aware of. At the end of year 12, you can have this entrance exam that you probably need to take, because most universities will ask you to take the UCAT. Some actually take a different one, but I'll talk about that in a second. But this year, it doesn't look like there's a lot to do there, but actually there's a lot to do in this kind of gaining experience part, and that's going to help you when you get into year 13. You don't want to leave it too late. So it's good that you're already thinking about these things now, because this is what happens when you get into year 13. All of a sudden, there's an absolute ton of things that you need to fit in, and there's really hard deadlines for all of these things in year 13. So as soon as you come back in year 13, some of you might know this if you are in year 13 now, you'll be straight on with thinking about your personal statements. You're going to have to be actually finalizing and picking just 4 medical schools to apply to. You're going to have to submit your actual UCAS application on the 15th of October. Then if you're thinking about applying to any BMAT universities, you're going to have to prepare and sit that entrance exam. Then you've got your interviews. And on top of all of that, you've got all of your exams as well. So you can understand how much there is to do in a very short period of time as soon as you come back in year 13. So it's really important that you've done as much of the hard work in year 12 as possible, so that when you get into year 13, you're ready and you can just kind of hit the ground running and tick all these things off really easily. You don't want to be finding work experience and trying to sort out volunteering in year 13. You need to do that in year 12. And then towards the end of that, obviously you'll take your exams, and then hopefully you'll get the grades that you need, and you'll have your place at medical school. But there's a lot to do from September to about February in year 13. So, competition for medical school spaces. This is something that we hear about all the time, and it is competitive. Applying to medical school is tricky. And there are about 7,500 spaces in total each year for medical school applicants. That includes international students. So in reality, there's about just over 7,000. So this year it was 7,115 spaces at medical school. And this year or last year, we had nearly 30,000 people applying to study medicine. So you've got 30,000 people and you've only got 7,000 spaces. So that competition ratio is actually quite high. You're looking at, you know, about 4 applicants for every 1 space. So it's difficult, it's tricky, but as long as you maximize your opportunities and you apply to the right universities for you, it can be a lot easier than that. So we're not kind of giving you these numbers to scare you in any way. This is the reality of the situation, but you can really maximize your chances of getting in if you take the right steps along this next 18 months. So this is just the competition ratio for 2022. I've kind of already spoken about some of those numbers. So medical schools, when they have 30,000 people applying and they've got to get it down to 7,000, they need ways to kind of filter out people in some way. And they do this through various steps. And the first thing they do is they tell people that they have to study particular A-levels. So the vast majority of medical schools will ask you to take chemistry and biology at A-level. So they're already kind of cutting out some people that haven't necessarily picked the right A-levels. So just from this graph, you'll see that 14 will require biology and chemistry. 12 will say that you have to take biology or chemistry. And then there'll be 10 that say you have to take chemistry, 2 where you have to take biology, and then there's 1 university, which is Newcastle, which is where our office is based. So we're very proud of this. They don't ask for any particular subjects. So if you're worried about, oh, I haven't taken the right subjects, then Newcastle is always a great option if you've not taken them or you decide later on that you want to study medicine. But you have to get these A-levels correct. And even in these cases, when they're asking for kind of biology and chemistry, sometimes they even ask for a 3rd subject. They specify a 3rd subject as well. So it's really important that when you're applying to medical school, you check the medical school's A-level requirements for yourself. Because if you don't meet their A-level requirements, they'll cut you. So you've got to make sure you pick the right ones and you're taking the subjects that match those medical schools you're applying to. It's really important. You have to get this right. Then, obviously, grades, they will tell you that you need to score kind of a minimum of normally AAA, so you're going to need 3 A's minimum. There's a couple of universities that will take you if you get less than 3 A's, and that is Kenton Medway and the University of Buckingham. Now, the University of Buckingham is a private medical school where you have to pay your own fees. So that makes it kind of inaccessible for some students, quite a lot of students actually. So really, if you need a student loan and you're going to do the normal kind of applying to university process, you've only got 1 medical school that you can apply to, which is Kenton Medway, if you get less than 3 A's. So you have to be really on it. So if you're at the start of year 12 now, use this as a bit of motivation to realize how hard you're going to have to work on your exams. You know, hit your mocks really hard at the start of this year. Make sure you take them really seriously, because you're going to need those grades when it comes to next year when applying to medical school. So, you know, hit the ground hard with all your studies now. It'll make your life a lot easier later on. Okay, so another way that medical schools kind of filter people out are these things called entrance exams. If you're in year 13, you'll know about these already. If you're in year 12, this might be kind of the first time you've heard about these entrance exams. So essentially what they do is they make you take these tests and then they give you a score, and then it gives them a way of ranking people, and they can take they can put cut-off marks for, if you're sitting the UCAT, if you didn't score more than say 2,400, they can cut some students out and only take the highest scoring people to the next round and things like that. Don't worry about these entrance exams. If you're in year 12 now, you've got plenty of time to think about these later. It's just to give you an awareness that most medical schools will make you take one of these entrance exams, and it's called the UCAT and the BMAT. The UCAT tends to be is a multiple choice questions, kind of under timed conditions, quite tricky, but there's plenty of question banks out there to help you with that. The BMAT is some multiple choice questions and then an essay as well. And that tends to be for the more kind of, say, more academically challenging or more traditional medical schools. So you've kind of got Oxford in there, you've got Cambridge in there, Imperial and UCL. They want students that can write really fluently and express things really well. So that's why they make students take the BMAT. But if you're in year 12, you'll take the UCAT at the end of year 12, and then you take the BMAT after you've applied in October in year 13. So you've got a bit of time to think about that. The next thing we always get asked as well is, what's a competitive score? What's a good UCAT score? What's a good BMAT score? So these are kind of the scores from the last few years. We work out what the average has been for the last few years. So UCAT has just released their preliminary results for 2022. This is kind of the average score. So it's currently at 2,554. If you're in year 12, that might mean absolutely nothing to you right now, but don't worry about the score. It's just so you know in the future that it is scored in some way. Don't worry about it now if you're in year 12. If you're in year 13, you'll probably know what that means. And that's absolutely fine. You'll be able to judge your score against that. For the BMAT, you'll be looking at, there's 3 sections. So in section 1 and 2, you'll want to hit a 4. And in section 3, you'll be wanting to hit a 3A or above as well. If those numbers don't mean anything to you right now, that's absolutely fine. We can send these slides across to your teachers, and you can look back on these when you understand the UCAT and the entrance exams just a little bit more. Okay, so once you jump through all of those hoops, they will decide whether they want to invite you to interview or not. You can see how these layers are building, and they're kind of filtering people out at each stage. The interview tends to be the final process that they put students through. Most medical schools now use something called a multiple mini interview process. And essentially is you'll have kind of almost like 10 individual stations, and you'll rotate around, and you'll be asked a question or be given a scenario at each station. So it gives you 10 opportunities to answer different questions, speak to different people. If you mess one of the questions up, fine, you can forget about that and move on to the next one. And being judged by 10 different people gives the universities a really good way of seeing how you come across to lots of different people. The older, kind of more traditional interview style is kind of that idea where, if you've got 3 or 4 people behind a desk and you're on the other side, that's normally called a panel interview. And there are some universities that still use that. So kind of Cambridge and Oxford, Glasgow, Dundee, Barts, Southampton, they still use that more traditional kind of interview. Neither one is better or worse. It just depends how you prefer to interview. So yeah, if you're looking at that in year 12, that comes later down the line. If you're in year 13 now and you're preparing and thinking about interviews, it's just to get ready and be ready for the type of interview that you might have to face in kind of between December and February. Work experience as well. So I know your year 13s will probably be on top of all of this already, which would be great. If you're in year 12, you'll be thinking, oh my God, how do I go and find work experience? How do I get all this? That's fine. You've got plenty of time to work it out. But this is some analysis of what the medical schools are asking for. So we had a look at all their requirements on the website. So we kind of grouped the words that they're looking for. And Caring and team working are by far the two biggest skills that they're looking for people to gain through their work experience. So if you're trying to line up any kind of work experience or volunteering over this next year, try and make sure that you have these two key things built into them in some way. So some kind of caring role, some kind of team working role. And then interestingly, the next two keywords are insight and reflection. Now, this is kind of like the secret key to applying to medical school is the ability to reflect. And reflection isn't about saying, look what I did, I followed X doctor around and I saw X, Y, and Z. Reflection is taking that experience that you've had and saying, actually, I witnessed this, I saw this, and I learned this. I learned X, Y, and Z. And that's the difference between describing something and reflecting on it. And medical schools are so keen on reflection and being able to see that you've understood and learned from a scenario, because that's how you learn as a student. That's how you're going to learn as a doctor. So they want to see you doing that now. We have tons and tons of YouTube videos, articles, blogs, guides about reflection, because it's so important. So if you get a little bit of time and you want to read about reflection, please go and have a look at the website and have a look at some of those things around reflection. It's essential, and it runs through the entire medical school application process. Cool. So extracurricular activities as well. This kind of fits hand in hand with the work experience side of things. And usually this is the point where people say, oh, how can I get work experience? What work experience should I get? What extracurricular activities should I be involved in right now? Volunteering is a great one that you can get involved in. There are thousands of charities out there that are always looking for help. So whether it's the big multinational charities or even just the local charities around you and around your school and college, contact them and say, look, I'm thinking about applying to medicine. I could really do with some volunteering. You know, I'm really keen to get involved. I'll get stuck in with anything you know that you have. And charities are always looking for help, so you'll always be able to find some kind of volunteering role. If you do anything to do with sports as well, yes, taking part in sports is fantastic. It's great as an extracurricular activity. If you can take that to the next level, whether it's kind of teaching younger groups or getting involved in some kind of coaching, then that's an extra level that medical schools will look for. Similarly with kind of music, if you have any musical talents, try and get involved in teaching younger people, taking that talent that you've got and applying it to different things. Similarly with kind of teaching and reading books to younger age groups, or trying to get some volunteering even in a kind of care home or a hospice, even if it's just reading to the residents there, it's really good experience in a caring environment. If it's making cups of tea, if it's helping people get around, or directing people around a hospital, anything like that are really good extracurricular volunteering activities that you can get into, and will give you an insight into healthcare. And the fact that you're here as well and already learning from kind of online talks like this, get involved in as many webinars as you can, any student conferences, try and get a chance to speak at a student conference, something like that as well. Anything you can kind of add to your CV and build your skills. These are all really good kind of examples of things that you can go away and find and get involved in. I just put a note on there. This list is not like an exhaustive list. This is just a few things that kind of just came off the top of our head when we were making these slides. There's lots of things you can get involved in. And if you can have that team working and caring element to it, like they're asking for here, perfect. That's absolutely great. Try and get involved in as much as you can. Finally, this is really important, and this kind of applies more to the year 13s. You have to be a bit tactical with your medical school application. It's really important that you only apply to medical schools where you fit their criteria. There's so many people applying that if you miss one of the criteria, they will cut you. They won't take you to that next level. So it's really important that when you're thinking about applying, that you take the time to look at every element that I've spoken about in here and make sure that you fit each of those criteria. You can't miss any of them. You've got to get them all right. And if you do that, you'll maximize your chances of getting into medical school. And it's really important that you find the right medical school for you, and you don't just apply based on name and reputation. Okay, that's kind of the general bulk of the things that I was going to kind of go through. Really important that you continue to read up on some of these elements. I can't physically go into all the detail around interviews and personal statements and UCAT and BMAT all in this one talk, but we have lots of resources about every single element on the website. So under the section that says free resources, if you have a look under there, there's just tons and tons of stuff. Or go and have a look on YouTube as well. We've got some videos about all of these different parts of the medical school application process. I continue to get the support from your teachers as well. The fact that they're organising this for you is amazing. They have copies of our latest reports to help you with all of these elements as well. So you've got a good support team with you. Just take that extra step and go and do a bit more self-research as well, and go back to your teachers and talk to them about your application, and keep that communication open, because it will really help you, and that will help you get into medical school. Okay, that's the main bits from me. I don't know if there's any kind of questions from you guys, anything I can help with.
Thank you, Ma, so much for very, very informative sessions. So do you have any questions now, student? Is it all clear for you? Any questions, any concern at the moment? How do you feel now after? Yes, okay.
Hi, Mark. I'm Ben. I'm one of the other crews.
Hello.
Yeah, I've got a question on slide there about work experience and opportunities. I've worked at college here for a number of years, and quite difficult for our students to find related work experience, like medical, clinical based experience. Yes, of course, all of the volunteering and things like that they can do in their local community helps. But when we look over statements of our successful applicants, often those are the ones that have found the GP or hospital experience, so they've managed to have that on their statement. I wonder whether you can give some advice to our students on how they may find those if they've not got that in their professional, or kind of family background, or they may not be in their professional network. Because often I'm seeing that's the key when you meet a year 13 student that's got that. Obviously, that's not a kind of guarantee they're going to get an interview, but it can really help. I just see it time and time again on the statement. So, especially with our year 12 students, what any tips you might give?
Yeah, definitely. I think that, so if you don't know somebody, it's going to be more difficult. You just have to accept that. That's kind of the way of life. There are students that will have friends and families with parents and families and relatives that can get them into those settings. If you don't have that, don't worry. You're going to have to work a little bit harder, but it's still absolutely possible. There's two things that we always give to students. So we have like a guide on applying to GP practices, and we have like an email template where students can, it's basically a draft email that they can fill in with some kind of little bits of personal information, because quite often students don't understand how to approach and ask for work experience. So we've drafted an email that's kind of a professionally written, looks really smart, and can be sent to all the local GPs in the area. The thing with that is you're going to have to apply to a lot. It's a numbers game. So you're probably going to have to apply to 10, 15, 20 GP practices if you want to get in there. Don't apply to 1, 2, or 3 and give up. It's a numbers game, so play the numbers, apply to more. The second thing is for students that are a bit more confident to pick up the phone as well. We've written like a call script as well. Again, it's that fear of picking up the phone and not knowing what to say quite often with students. and we give them a script, and it says like, introduce yourself properly, explain why you're looking for work experience, and ask if there's any way that you could get a placement there. It's a really proactive, hard work way of doing it, but you've got to accept that it is going to be hard work if you don't know somebody, and you're going to have to play the numbers. So between that email script, the draft email, and the call script, which I can send over to you after this call, then you can share that with the students. It's going to be hard work, but just play the numbers. And then once you get in there, then you can be in there for quite a while, and you'll gain all the experience that you need through that then. So does that help? I hope that helps.
Yes, it does. Thank you. It would be great to have these resources and share these stuff.
Yes. Can you take the BMAT and BMAT together? The student asked that, can the student take the BMAT and UCAT together?
So you don't take them at the same time. The UCAT you take in the summer between year 12 and year 13. And then the BMAT, you sit that in kind of late October, sometimes early November in year 13. You can take both, but it's just not done at the same time. Is that okay?
They run at the same at the different time.
But some universities will require a UCAT and some a BMAT, right?
Yes, so you get to pick 4 medical schools when you're applying via UCAS. If you apply to, let's just say Oxford and Cambridge, and then you apply to Newcastle and Manchester, what you've done there, you've picked 2 medical schools that will require you to take the BMAT in Oxford and Cambridge, and you've applied to 2 universities that will want you to take the UCAT. So you will have to take both exams if you want to get into those. If you apply to 4 UCAT universities, you don't have to sit the BMAT. So you don't have to sit both exams if you're only applying to UCAT universities. Does that make sense?
The student asked that, if you fail the BMAT or UCAT, can you redo them?
So you can't retake them in the same academic cycle. But what you can do is, this is where it comes down to being a bit tactical. If you, let's say you take the UCAT and you completely mess it up, you have a really bad day when you're taking that exam. What you can do is you can either apply to universities that are not bothered about your score on the UCAT. There are some medical schools that have really low thresholds for the UCAT, so you can pick those. Or you apply to BMAT universities and you work really hard on getting a really good BMAT score. So that's where it gets a bit tactical. But hopefully kind of your teachers or through us, if you're in that situation, just let us know your scenario is, and then we can kind of steer you towards the right medical schools to apply to, so you don't waste any of those 4 choices.
Yeah. First one, like, if you really
So the student asked that how the university they prefers the A-level subject, and if they meet with the first 2 subject they require, would they have any preference for the 3rd subject?
What was the first part of the question, sorry?
How university they prefers, which subject, A-level subject, university they prefer for A-level?
So typically, most universities, most medical schools are going to want you to study biology and chemistry. Some of them will also tag on another, what they call like academically challenging subject. So that'll be something like maths, physics, psychology. Sometimes they also put on there. We've got a full list of the subjects that all the medical schools require on the website. So if you have a look at that kind of specific article, it'll tell you what every medical school wants from the subjects. But for 90% of the universities, you're going to need some form of biology / chemistry as your A-level choices.
do they have any other questions?
If you do have any more questions kind of after this talk, if something comes up slightly later, you know, your teachers do have our email address. You can always send any questions over to us, and we'll be happy to get back to you.
Definitely. And any questions in mind later, I'll pass them to Mark. Thank you so much, Mark. It's been good, really informative.
Okay, no problem. Thank you very much. Hopefully it was just a good overview for everybody, and you'll have a good, clear idea of everything that you need to do in the kind of the upcoming year or so. There's a lot to do, but as long as you're prepared and you start working now, you'll have as good a chance as anybody else applying, if not better, because you've got some really good advice and guidance, and you've got some really supportive teachers as well. So good luck, and you know, take advantage of all those free articles and resources on the website as well, because they'll help you with every stage between now and applying. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you very much. Have a good afternoon. Bye.